The road to hell is paved with good intentions. I understand that, unlike for our neighbor to the south, there is no reservation in the Canadian Constitution for a right to own guns. However, I do believe that this is a right that has been earned and fought for by the ones who came before us. Taking rights in the name of safety and security is a concept that sounds all too familiar if you're the cautious type. And this is from someone who's not necessarily pro-gun. Welcome to Indology, a reasonable outlet upholding advocacy, civics, and most importantly, logic. Before we go any further, please show me that you want more level-headed content by liking and/or subscribing. Thanks for your support. First and foremost, if you know Abba and Preach, shout out to you guys. They did a video on this subject, and it's straight to the point. I agree with everything they say. This video will dive deeper into the specifics of the proposition. This is to say, what exactly it is that the Liberal Party, or Justin Trudeau's government, is pushing forward in terms of legislation. We'll then consider the intentions of the government based on what's in there. The specific law project is Bill C21. On screen somewhere are the lines in the summary that seemed most likely to be interpreted in different ways. So I investigated further. I did not know this, so I made sure to look it up because I did not understand the specific velocity metric of 152.4 meters per second. This is actually because under that velocity, a weapon may not be classified as a firearm. Today I learned. Based on what's on the screen right now, a warrant can be made to seize the weapons of an individual if another argues under oath to a judge that it may be necessary for their or another's or multiple people's protection, and that of at most 30 days if no date is specified. This can, however, be of any length of time judged to be required to protect the specified person or people. On its own, this is not very surprising. However, I can't picture ways this can be abused to restrict one's access. The hearing itself may be done in private with the requester as per the judge's decision based on safety or other reasons. It appears that the requirement for such a warrant with the goal of seizing personal firearms property by an officer is the suspicion of immediate danger. So no other possibility for a police officer to just take away your weapons, which, alright. Furthermore, it appears that there is no punishment for doing so, as there is no clause about whether the officer's judgment on the requirement of the seizing was inappropriate. Additionally, based on these clauses, they may only return the property firearms as soon as possible, which, depending on the situation, could be used by law enforcement, as it is entirely up to them to judge this feasibility. They even reserve the ability to restrict the owner's possibility to claim information about the warrant or reason for the seizing. This ability seems to be reserved by the judge. However, one could see law enforcement encourage the judge for their own purposes. An application to revoke the order for the seizing can be made by the subject of the seizing. However, as mentioned previously, the information may be restricted, so it's unclear how effective that may be in such a situation. At least the hearing for the revocation must happen before the end of the seizing. The identity of the one who requests the seizing can be hidden, which could be very frustrating. If one does not understand the entire picture regarding the seizing, they may not know how to prevent it from happening again. Furthermore, if they suspect they may know the source of that restriction, they may want to go directly to that person and ask why they proceeded that way. The secretive aspect may lead to the very situation that was meant to be avoided if the procedure is mishandled. Such a protective order will very likely make it impossible to continue holding a license based on this update to the Firearms Act. Very clearly, new handgun registrations will be prevented. A transport license is automatically required with the owning of a previously mentioned weapon, but will not be permitted if the weapon is one that is to be part of a gun collection. It only permits the transport within the specific province of the residence. Transport of firearms is to and from an approved club or range from a later section. A handgun can only be transported from a port of entry by an individual with the license for it. A pre-1998 handgun can be carried elsewhere than where it is allowed by a license owner to either protect their life or the ones of others, or for their lawful profession or occupation. Importation of ammunition can and must be done by the owner of a license, and this license must be produced to customs officers. Ammunition can be imported by an adult, non-resident, through declaration and filing of a form to a customs officer. This declaration is equivalent to a license for that purpose. Without one of these two requirements, the ammunition may be detained and or exported or disposed of. The declaration may be refused on grounds of failure of truthfulness or for the general safety of one or multiple people. A condition may be attached to authorizations to carry or transport as seen fit by issuing officers and in the interest of any person's safety, and this based on regulations. If the commissioner, registrar, or a chief firearms officer believes the transfer of a firearm is intended to commit an offense, they may disclose the information from A to G to law enforcement. Advertising weapons in a manner that promotes violence against people is now an offense. Such an offense may lead to imprisonment of up to 2 years on a first offense or 5 years on a second offense, or by summary conviction. There are plenty more things related to the Nuclear Act and the Immigrations Act in there. Nothing in there seemed very much out of place or too relevant to the specific changes brought to handguns. They appear to be for clarity and consistency, reiterating the restrictions on handguns, usage, and carrying for duty, as well as related offenses. All in all, there were many entries that were very similar, identical, because of how each act refers to each other and must hold the same definitions. The biggest takeaway is the summary at the top of the bill is a rather reliable one, and the distribution of new handgun license is to be restricted. However, this does not seem to affect previous licenses for now, aside from the distribution and transportation, of course. But why would they want to ban new handguns? It's not exactly limiting the amount. And the buying back of weapons, as advertised by the news, does not seem to be anywhere in this bill. So, the buying back of assault-type weapons remains nothing more than a pledge, just like Amber Heard's. I believe at this point it's normal and healthy for anyone to wonder, what is the actual point of this bill and proposition? According to StatCan, assault rifle homicides are practically non-existent in Canada. Even statistically, handgun homicides are very small in numbers, especially compared to the States, a comparison Justin Trudeau is constantly doing. He seems to forget that these are two entirely separate countries with incredibly different firearm cultures. Outside of illegally acquiring one, obtaining any kind of firearm and license in Canada is an involved process. Unlike in the land of the bald eagle, you can't just walk into Walmart to get a firearm. Not only that, owners are required to properly stow away their weapons to avoid them getting into the wrong hands. Any failure to do so is punishable, and a serious liability is in place as a deterrent. Firearm-related violent crime typically represents less than 3% of police-reported violent crime in Canada. There's therefore a lot more crime that should be prevented instead. It might help to look at what the purpose or reason behind most crimes is, so that we can try and prevent them, rather than simply disarm criminals who will simply find another tool to achieve their goal. Because that's what it is, a tool. So what do I see from this bill? I see a government trying to piggyback on a visceral, emotion-triggering tragedy for easy brownie points for the citizens who don't know regulations or are too blinded by fear and grief to see the stratagem. They claim that gun violence has a significant and emotional impact on victims, families, and communities. In my opinion, such a statement is disingenuous because it fails to recognize that it is not the tool that causes this harm to the group of individuals, but the presence of violence in their neighborhood, where they live, where they should be safe. I see a government trying to virtue signal while taking away the rights of good, law-abiding citizens because of a few bad apples and using taxpayer money to do so. All that instead of putting their efforts in what has more potential to help further reduce criminality and division. You might wonder what such a suggestion could be. Glad to oblige. I think we can all agree that, generally speaking, homicides, mass or not, are rarely the result of a healthy mental state or healthy relationships. This is why I, among countless others, believe that instead we should be investing more in social mental health and education to improve access to it for people most in need. This, coupled with an improvement of border and customs ability to detect smuggling into our country, would almost surely have a higher return on investment. According to the Mental Health Commission, investing in mental health would reduce other types of costs in the long run, such as loss of productivity. Better mental health overall could help prevent many different types of crimes, not just the 3% that our government seem to focus on. Just the same, being able to intercept more dangerous contraband before our borders could prevent firearms-related criminal activity as well as drugs, trafficking, and counterfeiting. If you stayed around this long but haven't yet subscribed or showed you like the content, I would really appreciate and urge you to do so now. If you too believe that we should invest in true prevention rather than the phony, half-baked, small step in the right direction offer that our government is adopting, then follow the link in the description to sign the Holstered Hearts Don't Touch Guns, Touch People petition. Thank you for watching. Until next time.